Folks, welcome to an all new episode of So Bad It's Good. This is your pal Ryan, and this is your Wednesday episode. How is everybody doing out there? Man, I hope you are hanging in. It is wild out there. This is a great show. It's going to be me and you. Plus, we have a tiny interview with James Ross, who is the director of the new Netflix documentary Trainwreck Poop Cruise. That's right. I said that correctly. Trainwreck Poop Cruise. It is part of a series of documentaries on Netflix under the title Trainwreck. They also did the Astro World tragedy, which just premiered a couple of weeks ago, and they have a series of documentaries over this next month. And I think it's a really good series of documentaries, and especially it's that great intersection of pop culture and tragedy and pop culture and politics, pop culture and just kind of bizarre experiences like today, the poop cruise, the was an actual cruise in 2013 where it broke down and the toilets were overflowing. And you're like, they made a documentary about that? And they did. And it's actually really good. You can disassociate with it. But I think it's the perfect kind of blend of insane humor, and it has a heart, if you can believe that. So, anyways, but you're good. I just want to check in because if you're not good, we can stop and talk about what you guys are going through. Okay, nobody? Okay, good. I'll talk about what I'm going. No. Anyways, if you like the show, consider giving it 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. On Thursday, I'll be over at Doug Buden's for Cook and Kibitz. It's a live Instagram cooking show. It's 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Doug Buden's IG. This week we have Anna Kinkosis from Real Housewives of Miami, the first couple of seasons. If you are OG Miami fans, you know Anna, and I think she has a podcast out where I think she talks about Bravo. So that's awesome. And Kirby Bliss Blanton, who is an actor that I met on the Jeff Lewis show, and Doug invited all of us. So it's always a really fun time. I look forward to it. I probably will not be eating the food because on the health journey, folks, how tired are you of hearing my health journey? So I was back at it today after my day Vegas trip where I enjoyed some sushi and I had a couple cocktails and I'm back at it. I went and worked out today. I went on a long hike and I posted on my Instagram my lunch, which was just like cucumbers, mushrooms, and tomatoes and some sweet potatoes. And then tonight I had tuna. I had tuna out of a can with some, but I mean, I'm back at it, feeling good. I'm committed to this thing. I'm going to see it through until I weigh 8 pounds. That is when I'm going to stop. 8 pounds, you guys, mark my words. When I get to that 8-pound mark, whew, you can get ready, folks. I don't know. There is something good, I think, about having specific goals. I know this sound, you're like, no shit, Sherlock. Yeah, of course. But for me, I just kind of like, I'll just do the podcast. But I don't really sometimes have specific goals, which I'm saying that out loud. I'm like, I really should sit down with somebody. My mind just doesn't work that way where I sit down and I always talk about like, I got a vision board. I've said I got a vision board for the last 20 years. I'm one of those guys that loves the concept of a journal, but I can like, I'll do like this 5-minute mindset journal in the morning where it's like, 3 things that you're grateful for, 3 things you want to accomplish on your day, and how are you feeling? And then at night, you put the 3 things that you're proud of that you did, and the thing that you could have done better on. That's the extent of my journaling. But I remember in high school, you guys, my best friend Dusty, he was like a journaler. And he would get like fancy journals, and I would buy a fancy journal, and then I would just peter out after 2 days. And then nowadays, my hand hurts from writing. Do you guys notice this? When you actually go to write with your hand, you're like, ow, the muscles. Oh, my hand muscles. Ow. Because we're just so used to typing. I was reading some book by Malcolm Gladwell, I think, and he was talking about the prevalence of computers and things like that. And that like in 50 years, it's going to be more foreign for kids to learn to write. Like, remember how much time you spent on learning to do cursive writing in elementary school? Like that was a big thing, like cursive writing. And now cursive writing, it's shot. I mean, think about maybe your parents or your grandparents, or maybe in movies where they would write like love letters to each other back and forth. Is anybody writing love letters now? Mainly it's just text like, you up? Send nudes. But like, by the way, I didn't even plan on talking about handwriting, but here we are. But I wanted to journal so bad. I liked the idea of journaling. I like the idea of vision boards. I like the idea, but specific goals are good. And that's why I'm proud when I do have a specific goal because I'm pretty good at following like a plan. It's just not, I'm not good at making the plans. So, like, once I'm on a plan, I'm like, I'm going to stay on this. You know how hard it is to get a plan? So, I am not going to fuck around. I am going to stay with this plan. So, what is upsetting me tonight? So many things. We could talk politics, but you're not here to hear that. But, God, but let me talk something that I'm very upset about. And of course, we do a Saturday recap of the week of Love Island, but I'm a little infuriated, so I'm just going to talk for a couple of minutes about Love Island USA, tonight's episode. Monday, is it? Today's Tuesday night's episode. And so if you don't want to have a spoiler, just fast forward 5 minutes. So I'm pissed. I think, you know what's great about loving a show? Is that sometimes you love something so hard, whether it be a show or maybe a baseball team, football team, something sports related, that your emotions are entwined with this show. So when the show you feel is not living up to its potential, you get legitimately upset, ridiculously upset. And you realize you're a grown up, blah, blah, blah. But like, let's throw that out for a minute where you're like, this show doesn't know what the F it's doing. So they did this thing, Casa Amor, where they split up the guys and the girls, and then they send in these new bombshells to like tempt relationships, and then they bring all them back together and see who's like, kind of cheated, even though they've only known each other for a couple of weeks, and it breaks up relationships or it makes relationships stronger. And the bad thing about this season, even though it's had really good memeable moments and some people like Hutta that have exhibited some, I think, poor behavior, that it's great to kind of poke fun at or talk about in terms of just behavior. But the show is called Love Island. It's not called Friend Island. It's not called Insane Island. It's not called Meme Island. It's called Love Island. And so the premise is it's not to win the show. And I think that's what's confusing the kids that are there now. And it's not called Instagram Island or Star Island. It's not there to, so you can be a star. And that's why I think sometimes it's bad to bring on sort of influencer type people. Like Ace had, I think, like 1 million followers on TikTok or something already. Like that person's already established in some sort of world. I'm not looking to continue somebody's fame. I'm looking to take an interesting person, throw them in this environment and see if somebody, I love this, I'm a producer. What I need to see, what I'm looking for, but truly, that's the hope. I mean, or when Love Island UK has worked in the past, it's because you've seen real relationships forming, and there is something magical about that. And you can see that everybody has a preference and a taste. This actually just feels like a game, and that people are competing. The girls obviously are more emotionally in it, and the guys are just like, "Ugh." They're just like, everybody's just all And by the way, the tattoos on this island, it should be called Tattoo Island. It is the most insane group of tattoos where you're like, wow, it's just like do they just cast a type of guy that is just going to get tatted up? And everybody's wearing intense jewelry that's probably, like just cheap fake jewelry to look like a baller. Everybody has like fake chompers. I mean, and this is because you hate to actually. There is one bombshell that came in there with obviously really bad fillers and Botox and just a lot of face work. And she's only 21 years old. And you feel horrible even thinking about even for somebody like me going like, oh God, I even noticed that is a very extreme look you have. And, you run down that, you run down that in your little thought hole here and say, well, what makes somebody get that much work to begin with? I mean, 21 years old, she looks like she's in her mid 30s, and it makes you sad. She's from Utah. It looks a little, there's an element of Heather Gay about her, if that makes sense. And it's not polite to make fun of or talk about anybody's looks, but at the same time, this is kind of a sociological experiment where you do start to think about what drives somebody to get that much work. Like, what have they gone through in their life? And also, the standard of beauty that we have set up in this country, especially. And, I tip my hat to the Kardashians for this and so many other people that we set up this kind of unachievable standard of beauty that makes people do wild and crazy things to their faces in trying to obtain that. And so I'm sitting there watching this show and I'm fully taken out of like the love thing. I'm just like sitting there thinking about what this girl has gone through. And then you get scared because you're like, they're going to come out. They're going to see all of us talking about their faces and their bodies. And that's got to be insane. In fact, it's gotten so insane on Love Island that they did a couple place cards during the show of like, remember to be kind to these people, like, and I'm like, how bad has it gotten? Are people like fully doxing families on this show of these islanders? Like, how bad has it gotten where they've put up place cards? And then you think about like, oh my God, am I contributing to this? But then at the same time, that's the thing we talk about with all reality shows, right? Is that part of the show and part of why reality shows work and have gotten as popular as they have is because of second screen technology, is because we can whip out our phones. We're a part of this experience and they depend on us being a part of this experience. You know what happens when somebody doesn't tweet about a reality show or doesn't make memes or doesn't talk about some sort of insane behavior they saw on this show? The show gets canceled. That's what happens. So as producers, sometimes I'm thinking they're like just throwing these people to the wolves because they already know how certain parts of the American population will respond. Like they're like, oh my God, they're just like throwing bait. We're like chum to us. And so you sit there and you're having this kind of like moralistic debate with yourself and then going, well, they wanted to do this in the first place. It's not, the thing is with anybody that goes on reality shows in the year 2025, and these people are really young. So maybe that's, something that you can, excuse, but is that you now have decades of proof and history to pull from to show you how people respond and how people act online, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I would hope as part of it, especially on a show like Love Island, because it's not just Love Island USA, even if you're like, oh, I didn't even know about it until last year. It's huge in the UK, huge, big in Australia. And it's starting to become really big here. In fact, I was just going over an article for the numbers on this season on Love Island USA. And here's a little bit of the breakdown. This is an article from thewrap.com. If you are a geek about movie numbers and TV figures and stuff like that, it's a great website. But it says Love Island USA made some ratings waves with the debut of season 7 on Peacock. During 2 weeks in a row, Love Island USA ranked as the #1 most watched streaming reality series for 2 consecutive weeks. No specific viewing metrics were provided by Peacock, but the Nielsen figures, and the Nielsen used to be, well, it still is, the rating system. It started back when, it was just primarily networks before cable even, and it's usually how they generate these statistics of how many people watch, and then they use those statistics to sell advertising, right? Love Island USA has continued to grow its viewership through its run, with the premiere episode's average audience quadrupling since the season's debut. To date, Monday, June 23rd, which was the first episode of Casa Amor, is the season's most watched day. So it has continued to build since the premiere, and the premiere of season 7 already beat the premiere of season 6 by a landslide, right? Additionally, new viewers have made up 39% of the audience for season 7. So this show has pulled in a whopping almost 40% in terms of new viewers that didn't even touch last season, which means people made so much noise for season 6 that they were like, I got to check this out. Those are huge numbers and statistics for a show like this. Peacock also reported that Love Island USA Season 7 scored the platform's biggest mobile audience for an entertainment series to date, with nearly 30% of viewing occurring on mobile devices, per first-party data from Peacock. So we're watching it on our phones, our computers, our iPads. I mean, like, it's so sad. Like, I'm still such an old fuddy-duddy that I want my networks, and I want movies to be in movie theaters, and I want TVs to be on TVs. I don't want to be on some fangled iPhone. So, with much chatter from each episode's nightly viewing happening on social media, Love Island USA garnered 54 million social interactions across Instagram, Facebook, X, and Truth Social. No, and YouTube from June 2nd to June 19th. Peacock boasts Love Island was the most talked about TV entertainment series during this time period. On TikTok alone, season 7 has grown 623 million video views to date, up 232% from last year's. 232%. What's that sound? That's the sound of the president of Peacock literally having an orgasm. And then the trailer for Love Island Beyond the Villa, which takes the season 6 cast and brings them or follows them in LA for their continued adventures, right? And this trailer, the trailer alone, just a preview, has had over 14 million views and 1.3 million social engagements in its first 24 hours. And in fact, after tonight's episode, there was a little bit of a 5-minute extended trailer for Love Island Beyond the Villa, which this is not what that's talking about. This is talking about the trailer that was released a couple of weeks ago. Those are insane numbers. This is a huge show. So many people are watching. So many opinions are getting thrown out there. Okay, folks, say goodbye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages because Mint Mobile is here to rescue you. I just switched to Mint Mobile and I am already saving $120, and it is the same quality of service, if not better. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number. You can even switch over your phone number along with all of your existing contacts. So ditch overpriced wireless and get 3 months of unlimited service from Mint Mobile for $15 a month. I didn't stumble over my words. $15 a month. So this year, skip breaking a sweat and breaking the bank. Get this new customer offer and your 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/sobad. That's mintmobile.com/sobad. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 a month. Limited time new customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on the unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. Okay, folks, if you've been listening to the show, you know I've been on a health journey this last couple of months. And part of that is because summer is here. You got more light. You got more time to do all the things that make summer so special. And you have to wear summer clothes. You're kind of showing off your goods in a sense. And the number one thing that you also don't want to be doing this summer is spending hours cooking inside. And that is where Factor comes in. Factor's chef-created, chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals are ready in just 2 minutes, taking the hassle out of eating well. If you know me, I like to do things fast. Factor meals arrive fresh and ready to eat. It is perfect for any active lifestyle over summer and beyond. With 45 weekly menu options, you can pick gourmet meals that fit your summer gains and goals. I am on the website right now, and you can choose from options that work for anybody, but especially work for me. There's Calorie Smart, there's Protein Plus, there's Keto, there's like 4 other different options that if you are trying to live a healthier lifestyle, it is perfect for. Factor powers your day sun up to sundown with nutritious breakfasts, on-the-go lunches, premium dinners, and guilt-free snacks and desserts. Factor has your whole day covered. So enjoy more this summer. Get Factor if you want all the flavor and none of the fuss. I just ordered my box and I ordered a high protein meal, a carb conscious meal, a GLP-1 balance, even though I'm not on a GLP-1, but it's still good food. And they even have fiber filled. I am so excited to get my shipment because I'm just looking to eat healthy and, not have to do the fuss of actually cooking this food. I'm not a good chef. So I'm using this and so should you. Get started at factormeals.com/sobad, 50 off, and use code SOBAD50 off. That's SOBAD 50. Sorry. SOBAD50. That's SOBO. Sorry, SOBAD50OFF to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code SOBAD50OFF at factormeals.com/SOBAD50OFF for 50% off plus free shipping. Factormeals.com/SOBAD50OFF. And that's really why it is interesting to try to teach an audience to be more responsible in the way they talk about this show, in the way that they come at these people. And it's hard because at the same time, they're asking us to be so critically engaged, so in it, that it's not confusing, but it's a hard job. And it's similar to what we were talking about last week with The Valley, of the responsibility of production companies, the producers behind the show. Should we fire Jax Taylor? I mean, it's a lot of responsibility, right? You're thinking about the right thing and the wrong thing and thinking about actually bringing new people in because that's your job. The job necessarily isn't to us, the viewer. The job is to the network. The job is to the advertisers. We got to sell that advertising at a really high rate. And so you got to find that line, I would imagine. I'm not a producer, but that's what I keep thinking about. I always tell you that. I keep thinking about that more and more the longer I do this show, is how do you satisfy everybody? And is that even the wrong rubric in which to think about this? Is that you have to throw that out and go, we're not going to please everybody. And do you go a step further and go, in fact, we're not going to please everybody. In fact, I hope we make people mad. I hope we make people angry because that gets people talking. Oh my God, back to the all the stuff that people do to themselves. Maritza sent me a picture of Hutta. I didn't realize Hutta had even had a nose job. And she was a musical theater kid. But she looked, so different with her previous nose. And I thought she looked actually pretty cool with I don't know. I thought she looked good both ways. But it is interesting. And I don't know what that message is. And I don't know even if I know, if I even have a stance on that. Of do what makes you happy. If something makes you feel better, do that. But it is interesting, standards of beauty and Americanized standards of beauty. And you see it all over the place on Love Island with these islanders. Anyways, what I started getting angry about to begin with, you guys, is that at the end of this, they do this recoupling ceremony. The girls are with new guys, the guys are with new girls, and then they'll come back together, usually in the older seasons. And at this point, you just don't have any really strong relationships, like maybe Ace and Shelley, even though I don't particularly root for Ace. But I don't think he's as much of a manipulator as people are trying to make him out to be. I think sometimes the narratives that we create are fancier than actually what is real life for them. But anyways, they did this recoupling. It was very dramatic. God, they love to do a dramatic pause. It's come on, can somebody just speak? Why are we pausing for 5 minutes to do reaction shots on 5 different people? I was like, there's no way this is actual real time. You're are you guys slow-moing this footage? So anyways, at the end of this, Nick got sent home and Olandria got sent home. And Olandria was with Taylor. But I got to tell you, I've told you this if you listen to my Love Island recaps. I do not sense chemistry with... I do not think Taylor likes Olandria. I don't even know what Taylor... Taylor seems like a really nice guy. He really does. But I sense no chemistry. And Olandria is all committed to him. And Olandria is my favorite person there. I like her as a person. In fact, I like a lot of these people as people. When you put them together, I have no feeling. And that's not good for a show that is supposed to be about romance. Because then you start thinking about it like a game. And that's not what it's supposed to be. I'm sorry. The goal shouldn't be to stay on the island. The goal should be to, fall in love or fall in deep like or fall in that kind of weird emotional love that you feel for somebody in the first month. When you're just it's like a disease that you've gotten. You're like, oh, I love this person. That's what it's supposed to be. So anyways, Nick was, Nick was with Sierra before the split. And Sierra's over on the other side and she's not fully feeling it with the other guys, or she's trying, but she keeps thinking about Nick. And Nick, I never know what he's thinking. I'm just checking out the different cold sores and pimples that he's getting throughout the island's experience. But I do think Nick's a really funny guy, a weirdly funny guy, which I always appreciate. So he gets pulled off and Olandria gets voted off as well. And everybody's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then at the end, they do this little addendum, this little coda where Olandria picks up and pulls up to the villa in a car. And the door opens as Nick's walking out and goes, Nick, come here, get in the car, get in. And then they take off. And it was that was a cliffhanger. And remember, tomorrow, like Wednesday night, we don't have an episode tonight. So we'll find out on Thursday more about this. And you don't know if this was like, because, it wasn't up to America. We didn't vote on this. We do get to vote on certain of these challenges. We didn't get to vote on this one. And we don't know if producers saved them, if they're going to just pop back up in the show at some point. We don't know if they're driving to America. Like, come on, we're pulling this we're pulling the car into a boat. We're pulling it into the poop cruise. Let's go. It was such a weird, and it's so well edited, and the music is so like overpowering that you think you're watching something epic, when in reality, if you actually would just sit and think about it for an hour, is that we were bamboozled. It's like, it feels lazy. It feels like you're trying to like throw bombastic things in there to make up for an overall season that is turned into like, really good moments. Like, man, I love the Megan Thee Stallion episode. I thought that was really fun. Like, it just hasn't taken off in the sense of love. It's taken off for these little moments that we get to make fun of, or little moments that you're like, oh, that kind of emotionally pulled at my heart, but not because of love, if that makes sense. It's like we've spent so much time just kind of being scared of Hutta in a certain way, and that made up for some of the lack of actual relationships in the villa. And so Jeremiah was sent home, which Jeremiah was somebody that, I didn't love him, but I definitely would have kept him over some of the other people there. So you're nearing, we've got a couple more weeks of this show, and it's really, you sense you're like, oh, it's petering out. Now, normally you have like some really crazy things happen in Casa Amor, and then they come back, and then they do this thing called movie night where they show these clips to the islanders, and girls get to see the guys talking shit or the guys making out with a girl that they didn't know in Casa Amor. And it causes like a whole nother dust up. Kayla and Aaron suffered from this a lot on last season on movie night. And it's a really exciting episode. And right now, I don't know if they'll even do movie night, because what the hell, what would it matter? Nothing truly insane, unless they're just not showing it to us, has happened that would like, and they let go of Jeremiah. They let like it's so, I feel like you've destroyed kind of movie night. So I don't know if they're scrambling. I don't know if they have plans. I think they know there are certain aspects that are not working, but the car pickup, it's like, I'm sorry. And Olandria also didn't do herself any favors, because she was pretty closed off in Casa to not meet any new guys and saying, I'm kind of committed to Taylor. And that's not good. That's not a good thing. And it's not like the relationship with Taylor was so strong that you could understand her being closed off. By the way, if you do not watch Love Island, you literally you're like, oh, I'm listening to the rantings of a madman right now. But this show gets you upset. The only thing, though, that the reason that you get so upset about a show like this is because you genuinely love it. And then you're thinking about it in terms of how my dad talks about like a football team of like, not a good season. We'll get them next year. We'll get them next year. But you're like, the world is watching. We have so many new eyeballs on the Love Island franchise that you want them to do good. But that's also the excitement about it, is that it is not as potentially staged, not staged in terms of like writing out a script, but they don't get to spend 7 months on an edit for this show. They edit it and put it out within like a couple of days. So it's a lot. And I'm sure, this is, once again, I always think about behind the scenes. I would love to know the creative meetings that they're talking about day in, day out. How that all gets put together would be truly fascinating to pay attention to. So, I'm not happy right now, you guys. You can hear it in my voice. And also Amaya Papaya, I love to watch her, but this is what I'm talking about. Truly a unique person. Very endearing in weird ways. But at the same time, this show isn't Weird Personality Island. We're having to fall in love with the quirks of a personality when we should be falling in love with watching two people fall in love. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm going to step off my soapbox right now. That was probably a lot for you guys. I just wanted to say a couple things about Love Island USA. Okay, let's talk about the Valley for a second. Now, the Valley, we'll be doing a full recap like we did last week of tonight's episode. And Jax Taylor in it a little bit, not as much as he was last week, but my God, did he make his little screen time count by still being a gigantic D-bag. And we found out that he obviously is back to drinking. Who knows about the drugging, but he's back to drinking because Brittany got a ton of DMs of him out at his bar partying. And then he tried to blame it on Brittany. Like, I can't believe she's not coming to visit me. Because she called him and was like, I'm not showing up, because I got all these messages. I don't want to. And he's like, what? Are you kidding me? And then in his classic stubborn fashion in the talking head, he's like, we're getting a divorce. What I do on my time is my business. No, dude, you've made it everybody's business. And when you're sent away for 30 days to work on yourself, I know it's not exactly, that's his hill to climb. But it is sort of offensive to the mother of your child that if you are out less than a week, you are already back to potentially a really dark place that everybody was like, yes, forget about all your responsibilities. Go take care of yourself. And you don't take care of yourself. And then you try to make Brittany look like a bad person. And then these people still go on a Hawaiian vacation, not Jax. But I was just like, oh my God, that's like a prison work release program. It's like you've been released from the prison of the valley and now go to Hawaii and see how you can be miserable there. It is so weird. I can't wait to talk about it on Thursday. We will talk about it. But I was thinking about in terms of there is sheer hatred once again for Jax. And by the way, this isn't new. This is deja vu for a lot of people because people hated him back towards the end of Vanderpump Rules initially. And it is interesting to think about this, though, is that obviously the producers and Bravo, they are very aware how much this man is disliked right now. But this is also the thing is that they're not protecting him or protecting him nearly as much as people think they are. Because if they were, they didn't have to leave that scene in that I just talked about. Remember, they're not legally bound to keep that scene in. They could delete that scene. You know how many scenes we have not seen in the Bravo sphere over the decades? You know how many things were cut out that we didn't even know about? Do you know how many things that happened that they didn't even, we're not going to film it, it's too intense. Yeah, that actually happens. And if they really wanted to protect Jax in that moment, they would have cut that scene because he looked like a gigantic D-bag again. They are keeping their foot on Jax's neck. Jax is going to Jax. And they're going to, I believe, help him, but they're not going to help him to a great degree. They're going to keep that proverbial foot on his neck. And I thought that was interesting. I keep thinking about that as well, is because people are like, oh, protecting the men. Really, are we protecting the men if what they're showing us makes us hate a lot of the men? I don't feel that's protection. I don't feel like that's a good edit. Do you guys feel that it's a good edit? I know you have strong thoughts and opinions about this as well. This is just mine. So we'll talk more about that, of course, on Thursday. And the last thing I want to talk about is kind of Vanderpump Rules related, but it's, I always say open the schools, teach the kids history. Let's do a little history teaching today. Now, most of you guys already are very aware, painfully aware of this story, maybe gleefully aware, because I think this brought the Bravo audience together a little over 6 years ago in April of 2019, I believe, when we really needed it. It was a very special weekend. And the weekend that I'm talking about is when 50 Cent went to war with Randall Emmett and kind of Lala Kent, in a sense, online in regards to money that was owed to 50 Cent from Randall Emmett, that Randall Emmett did not give back to 50 Cent. But after this weekend in 2019, all hell broke loose. So let's go over the events of this, what I think is a benchmark, watermark piece of history, Bravo history, definitely. I'm reading from a People magazine article from 2022 by our friend Dave Quinn, who also wrote an excellent book, an oral retelling of Bravo history called Not All Diamonds and Rosé. That came out a couple of years ago, and I've gone through, I read it once with my eyes, and then I listened once with the audiobook, and it gets better each time I check this out. I think it's one of those books I'll revisit every couple of years because it's just a great reminder. And by the way, before I get into this, I didn't get to tell you guys this. On Saturday night, I was leaving for Vegas on Sunday, and it was weird. Like, there's so many things to watch, but we wanted to watch something that was a little familiar, but something that I hadn't seen in a while. So we watched the Scary Island trilogy from the third season of Real Housewives of New York. And it had been a minute. And my God, it was like when I watched that second season of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills that I was telling you about months and months ago. That just blew me away because I was like, oh, maybe the Valley isn't that dark after all, because that season of Beverly Hills was so dark. Well, Scary Island does not disappoint. If you've never seen it, you don't even have to watch the entire third season. Just go to those episodes. It's on Peacock, and it's basically, it's basically Ramona's getting remarried. She's renewing her vows to Mario. And so they all go on a vacation, and it's her and Bethany Frankel and Alex McCord and Kelly Ben-Simone and Sonia Morgan, and they go buck wild. And Kelly Ben-Simone, literally seems to have lost all touch with reality at some point during these episodes. The behavior is so bizarre, and I never think we got a straight answer on what was actually going down, but Bethany thinks she had a psychotic break. And this was when Bethany was actually fun to watch. And Bethany is like in the beginning stages of her pregnancy, and she's married to Jason Hoppy. And it is, or getting married to Jason Hoppy. And it is wild. Remember, Bethany and Jill Zarin had broken up their friendship at this point. So Jill Zarin wasn't going on this relationship. Countess Luann was staying behind. She couldn't go. But these episodes also include the first time Countess Luann was in the studio and the making of Money Can't Buy You Class. Money can't buy you class. Elegance is learned, my friend. Elegance is learned. That's literally how the note progression goes on Money Can't Buy You Class. I know that because I just watched the episode, and she's working with this like suave producer. She's like, hey, there's people with talent, but there's also people that just have something, and you have something, Countess Luann. And they do like 2 takes of the song, and he's like, we got it. And she's like, well, I thought I'd be in the studio for a lot longer. No, we got it. And there's a guy with like every computer in the world trying to like manipulate her voice. It is so fucking wild. And then the rest of them go on this Ramona trip. And they're riding the Ramona coaster. They're on a boat, and the sparks are flying. Kelly's like talking that Bethany's not a real chef. I mean, they're talking over each other, which is some of my favorite kind of reality shows in New York did this so well. It's like a David Mamet play where they're just like on top of each other that you could watch the scene 3 different times and just pick a different person to focus on and get something different out of it every time. I was talking to Jackie Schimmel about this on Sunday, because she's a huge Scary Island and Housewives fan, of course. And she told me that one of her birthdays, she rented out a movie theater and had a bunch of fancy food and made all of her friends watch the Scary Island trilogy. And I was like, now that's a fucking birthday party. I don't celebrate my birthday usually. And I was like, that almost makes me want to get friends. I was like, that may like, if you've listened to the show from the beginning, I've talked about that all the time. Like if movie theaters really wanted to save themselves, they would show classic Housewives episodes. Could you imagine? I think that would or just show like fucking Love Island every night at your local AMC, charge like full price. It'll work. I swear to God. But she said she did this and it was amazing. And I was like, oh my God. So anyways, the Scary Island stuff, awesome. Just incredibly. It reminds me of what I love about Housewives, or what I started loving about Housewives when I first started watching it. And what it also reminded me is I was thinking about the new Roni, and I'm one of the people that are in the minority that I don't hate the new Roni. I don't think it's like the best thing since sliced bread, but I don't hate it. I think there's some really interesting things to work with. But what I do notice is that with any new casting, they try to do cool casting. They try to do casting where it's like people that are trying to look good and on trend and this and that. That's why I think I love Jessel, is because she wants to be cool and on trend, but sometimes she just isn't. And to me, that makes her cool and trendy. It's like the anti-cool is cool to me personally. But back then in Roni, these weren't cool ladies. These weren't ladies that I was talking about beauty standards on Love Island USA. Nobody was trying to reach any sort of beauty standard, but they were all well-to-do New York women. A little socialite, sure. A little, upper crust, definitely. A little out of touch, of course. But they knew how to interact with each other. And some of them had real relationships before the show started. And then you had an outlier like Alex McCord, which, God, I forgot how much I loved watching Alex and how much I missed those type of characters because she didn't fit in. She did not necessarily fit in. She reminds me a little bit of Miranda, and just like that. Miranda, Alex McCord, it's me, Steve. I've got one ball. But oh, yeah, Alex McCord was on the trip too. Sorry, I think I forgot to say her earlier. She got a little break from Francois. And anywho, but you know what I'm saying? Like, none of them you're sitting there going, man, these are cool ass people. Like, Kelly Ben-Simone thinks she's cool, but she's so out of touch with, or can't really interact with the other ladies in a normal way. Anyways, during the Scary Island episode, if you haven't seen it, you already know this. Ramona goes and ditches their boat because the owner of Hooters rest in peace, Hooters. I think they're all closing down. But the owner of Hooters is one of the yachts is having a Hooters party, and Ramona's already like she's had so many Pinot Grigios during the day, so she's lit. You can tell. Sonia's like babysitting Kelly Ben Simone. Kelly Ben Simone comes on. Like everybody, it is so funny. And right after that leads to one of the best dance scenes I've ever seen on Housewives, where Ramona is really feeling the 50 Pinot Grigios, and her and Alex McCord and I think Bethany are in the dance club, and there's like laser lights, and they're like, woo, and they're dancing. And I think like Ramona's doing like the locomotion at one point, and she's like, I mean, nobody's like backing it up. You know what I'm saying? This is like your mom at her best. And it is so, she's like, turtle time, turtle time. Sorry to do the Luann laugh, but it was just magical. And that's why I always really go back and dig into some of the archives. Dig into these archives. There is magic there. And it was very, very impressive to watch this. And then, of course, Jill Zarin, who wasn't invited, she was like, I'm worried about Bethany because Bethany's father had passed away. And Bethany's having deep conversations about her father, saying, you know what? I wasn't close with him. And part of me is kind of happy that he's gone. It's like, that's over with. I mean, some really intense things. But Jill Zarin surprises them on the last day of the trip. And Jill is in a fight with Bethany and has not gotten along with Alex McCord. And Kelly Ben Simone leaves overnight because she had like a mental breakdown. And they're getting their nails done at this house in this really nice beach area. And then all of a sudden you hear, surprise, hello, it's me and Bobby. Rest in peace, Bobby. And Jill like comes in, and Alex McCord, she goes into a K-hole. She's like, she looks like she's having like a panic attack. And Jill's like, I thought you'd be happy to see me. I thought, what? And everybody's just quiet. And Roman's like, you said you couldn't come. You said, what are you doing here? And it is so awkward and so funny and so tragic and so beautiful. It is just, guys, go watch the Scary Island trilogy. It had been a minute for me. Anywho, I love these little detours that we take. So anyways, let's get back to this 50 Cent timeline to close us out before the interview. If you want to skip ahead to the interview, there is a timestamp. I do recommend staying for the interview. So this is like the retelling of the events that led up to I'm Sorry, Fofty. Now, this started in April 26, one day after my birthday in 2019. And this April 26, 2019. So we were in like a month into the COVID, but it was 2019, right? Who knows? I think it was 2019. So 50 Cent shares a Vanderpump Rules clip and mocks Lala Kent and Randall Emmett's relationship. And the clip that 50 reposted on his Instagram has Lala in that scene with Stassi back in the VPR days, where Lala is talking about her meeting Randall. And she's like, I met him through The Row. The Row was the movie that Randall cast her in. It's a really bad horror film. But Lala's not bad in it, I will say that, but it is a bad horror film. Rand saw me and sent his assistant up to ask me if I was an actress. This was at Sir, you guys. I told him to go to my Instagram account. The next day, I get a phone call that says, you have an audition, Kent recalled to pal Stassi Schroeder in the episode. I had auditioned for it, and we went out, me and him, and like two of my friends. I let him hit it the first time, and we were inseparable. He would just send me like really expensive gifts. The first night we banged, I got a car the next day. He was like, do you want a Range Rover? I was like, yeah. Kent would go on to star in The Row, leading 50 Cent to compare Randall Emmett to disgraced movie producer Harvey Weinstein. Quote, 10 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Oh, this is what 50 wrote. 10 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Hoes are winning. Do you want a Range Rover? Yes, bitch ass. Then just run out and suck a D. LOL, SMH, shaking my head. That's what the kids SMH. So 50 put this clip out with that caption. And then April 26th, Lala Kent responds to 50 Cent. Remember, Lala, a little bit of a hothead, not, thinking I can go toe to toe with 50 Cent. So she wrote, I'm disgusted, she wrote in a since deleted comment shared by 50 Cent. We've sat up at dinners solo with you. You showing mad love, 50, while begging Rand to put one of your new talentless bitches in a film. And this is how you come for me on the gram? Gram is Instagram. You guys know that. I love Lala's wording. This is how you come for me on the gram? And then this is what Lala writes. She swears she's a thug from Southside Jamaica, Queens. The she referring to 50 Cent. And she's up in here watching Bravo, Lala Kent wrote in another since deleted comment captured by Comments by Celebs, one of my favorite accounts. I love those girls. Using a feminine pronoun for the New York rapper. Quote, someone has forgotten where they come from. Coming for me on the gram? I smell fish coming from 50's direction. Lala, gross. Okay, so then April 26th, also, Lala Kent says 50 Cent is trying to silence her because of her relationship with Randall Emmett. Lala Kent claimed in an Instagram stories video shared by fans online that 50 Cent was trying to, quote, diminish the validity of the hashtag MeToo movement by mocking her. She said, that I will not stand for. If you have been affected by a man like 50, do not be quiet. We're not going to be, by the way, did Lala start the whole Diddy trial? Like with 50, Lala needed to go after Diddy. We're not going to be silenced, Lala said. I have your back. And we need to let these fuckers know that they are not safe. Because once they think they've silenced us, we are all fucked, Lala said. April 26, 50 Cent responds to Lala Kent by posting screenshots of alleged texts between him and Randall Emmett. So 50 Cent went off. He next posted screenshots of these texts between himself and Emmett, demanding the producer repay the money, which 50 Cent said Emmett borrowed 6 years prior. Also on April 26, Randall Emmett, for his part, appeared to be upset about it all. He apologized multiple times, claiming he was, quote, not doing well, and that the stress of their public feud was causing chest pains. Now, this is where we're verging into Jax Taylor from the Valley a couple episodes ago when he was like, oh, high blood pressure, they're taking me to the hospital, and it was all a lie. So Randall doesn't even stand up for Lala. Randall's like, my heart hurts, ow. He writes, I'm sorry, Fofty. Emmett allegedly wrote, misspelling 50 Cent's name. I'm headed to the emergency room. I'm not doing well. Please don't text me anymore. I'm sorry for everything. This is too much for me. I'm so hurt and not feeling well. So he misspelled 50 to Fofty. That was amazing. Like sometimes mistakes, I was taught this in an improv class once. Mistakes are your friend, right? Lean into the mistake. Mistakes can be beautiful, right? Fofty, that's brilliant. April 27th, 50 Cent demands Randall Emmett repay him in full by Monday. Emmett's pleas fell on deaf ears. 50 wrote, fuck you, Randall. Sorry. Continuing to go in on Emmett, even after the producer allegedly paid him $250,000 towards the loan. Not the $1 million, $250,000. 50 wrote, I want all my money Monday. Fuck that. If he ain't got it, he can put his Rolls Royce on the truck to New York. This friend shit is overrated. 50 Cent even mocked Emmett's alleged health scare, claiming he was faking his heart condition even after sharing a since-deleted photo of Emmett at the hospital getting his heart checked. We all know this photo, right? I posted it on TikTok today, but it's the photo of Randall with like kind of a bemused look, and he looks like he's on some sort of exercise machine at some sort of doctor's office because he has 50 of those heart monitor paddles on him. It's one of the weirdest, most weirdly pathetic photos I've seen. And Randall sent like, look, this is me there. I'm proving that I'm having a heart issue. And 50 wrote, you're not going to die before Monday, 50 Cent wrote. Go ahead, knock yourself out, LOL. So 50, just relentless. He then shared a series of since-deleted memes mocking Emmett and Kent, all while counting down to the debt's due date. Quote, Money Monday, right around the corner. I'm going to bed early. Now, April 28th, 2019, 50 Cent creates I'm Sorry Fofty t-shirts to mock Randall and Lala. According to The Blast, 50 Cent sold 10,000 shirts on the first day alone of the I'm Sorry Fofty shirts. And you know what I'm about to ask, and I know what you think. No, I didn't buy one of these shirts. I'm cheap. But if anybody does have one of these shirts, I am willing to part with some money. This is the kind of shit I wish Jack sold on his eBay page. Are you kidding me? I want one of these shirts. Now, all of this had made 50 Cent someone whose good side Bravo superfan Chrissy Teigen wanted to remain on. Chrissy Teigen got involved, yes. Chrissy wrote, I never want 50 Cent to be mad at me. Please love me, Fofty. Okay. 50 Cent immediately wrote back writing, I love you, Chrissy and John. These people just keep trying me. All right. Do not try 50 Cent. Now, April 29th, 50 Cent announces Randall Emmett has repaid him in full. So the feud was short-lived, coming to a close on Monday, April 29th. 50 confirmed that $1 million debt owed has been paid in full. a rep for 50 Cent told People in a statement. In a since deleted Instagram post, 50 Cent shared another text exchange with Emmett confirming he, quote, just got the wire. He captioned the post, quote, I got my money, so I have no problem with Randall Emmett. In fact, I'm wishing him and his family a very blessed day. Positive vibes now, guys. And he deleted all of the posts. Less than 4 months later, 50 Cent appeared on Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen and addressed the feud. 50 said, I got me paid right away. He also addressed Emmett's Fofty typo, adding, quote, he was speeding, he's going fast, and it became a whole new thing. I don't have a problem with them. Now, September 12th of 2019, Lala Kent was on Watch What Happens Live, and Lala Kent reignited the dispute when she appeared on the program, and Kent told Andy she had receipts from the rapper about getting under his skin in their April feud. So Lala was like, oh, you know what? I got under his skin. I affected 50 Cent. Then September 16th, 4 days later, Lala Kent responds to 50 Cent accusing her of using cocaine. 50 Cent returned to taking shots at Kent and Emmett on Instagram, including accusing Kent, who had been open about her sobriety since 2018, of using cocaine. In a since deleted Instagram post, 50 Cent wrote Kent would, quote, have a drink, hit the powder, in reference to her alcoholism prior to sobriety. E! News reported that in since deleted Instagram stories post, the reality star defended herself against his allegations. She said, I feel it's important for me to say this, and I'm only going to address this once. My sobriety is something I'm proud of and work on every day. I've never done cocaine, nor were any other substances other than alcohol involved in my decision to get sober. I pride myself on being open and honest about everything in my life, hopefully inspiring others and letting them know they are not alone. The past couple of days, I've been slammed, to say the very least. People have asked me how I'm maintaining keeping my head up. To me, it's simple. I know real life from the illusion of social media. I know what it feels like to have your world crumble. Getting a phone call from your brother saying your dad had passed away, that is earth-shattering. Being called names and being falsely accused of things, that is far from earth-shattering. My mindset is something I'm grateful for. However, I can't help but think about how many people are taking their own lives daily due to cyberbullying. It is imperative that I tell you, you are not by yourself. I see you. I stand by you. I'm on your team. You are loved and make a difference in this world. Later that evening, 50 Cent responded to Kent's denial of his cocaine claims, calling her a, quote, crackhead. Now, June 9th, Lala explains why her feud with 50 did not appear on Vanderpump Rules. She said, I won't say more than I can. At the reunion episode, there was a very public beef between myself and a pretty famous rapper, and it got very bad. I felt like Randall and I had moved so beyond doing petty shit to each other that when I saw that, it was just like a knife in my heart. Everything's good now. Myself and Randall and this rapper, we just don't speak about each other. And said, number one, when all this happened, we weren't filming Vanderpump Rules. I think we would have had a much harder time if it was happening during filming, but there was a lot of legal stuff going on that. And she just grimaced and said, yeah. And then, happy ending, August 1st, 2022. We jump way ahead to 2022. October of 2021, Kent and Emmett called off their engagement after 3 years of dating. And nearly a year later, Kent made a surprise visit to the set of 50 Cent's new horror movie Skill House and took photos with her former rival. The two were all smiles in photos obtained by TMZ, including one featuring 50 Cent appearing to kiss Lala Kent affectionately on the side of her head. Witnesses said Kent made multiple trips to the set to visit 50 Cent, despite not having a role in the film. So kids, this is what I mean when I say study history. And let us get to our guest. This man, I think, is an amazing director. I think you are going to truly love this documentary on Netflix. It's called Trainwreck Poop Cruise, about an ill-fated voyage in 2013 with 4,000 unlucky passengers where the electricity went out, the bathroom stopped working, and for 5 days, hell ensued. So here is our guest, you guys. I'll see you back on Thursday for the Valley recap. Have a great one. Bye. Folks, welcome back to So Bad It's Good. Now, if you've been listening to the show or Jeff Lewis's show on Sirius, I have been talking about this docu-series called Trainwreck, and specifically this one episode called Poop Cruise. And I think that's just kind of a brilliant name for anything. But this is a 55-minute retelling, documentary style of a very tragic event that took place in 2013 on a cruise ship called the Carnival Triumph, leaving 4,000 passengers aboard stranded in the Gulf of Mexico for almost a week. And of course, there was overflowing toilets, which lends its name to Poop Cruise. But this was just a complete breakdown. But I think this is exactly what you need to watch right now to disassociate from everything that is going on. So we have the director with us today, Mr. James Ross. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. Hello.
Hello. I mean, I got to say, I mean, it's weird to say you enjoyed something that is, at moments, kind of harrowing and disgusting. But I will say the retelling of this incident, which I vaguely remember from 2013, it was so gripping. And I was just wondering, like, how do you even come to start working on this? Where did the idea where you're like, I need to make something regarding this?
Well, I mean, the original Trainwreck, which was about Woodstock '99,
Yeah.
was a huge hit. It was a great series. I really enjoyed watching it, and it was quite a while ago. And I think that kind of genre of disaster documentaries has kind of developed quite a bit, and there's just an appetite for those stories. People love them. So Raw Productions, which is the company I made this with, they were like, we should be doing more of it. They did the original Trainwreck one as well. And it was actually a mate of mine, Nick, and they started digging around for stories. And before I was at all even associated with this, I remember going to the pub with him and he was like, "Oh man, I'm working on this thing. It's called Poop Cruise." And I was like, "What? What are you doing, man?" It's like, yeah, it's about this cruise ship. And I was like, "Well, that sounds hilarious." And as fate would have it, a few months later, it had got commissioned by Netflix, and Tim, one of the execs, kind of who I've known for a long time, from filmmaking circles here, was like, "Dude, you'd be good for this project. Like, do you want to do it?" And yeah, I mean, you don't get offered projects like this a lot. I'd been making kind of serious films, and I was like, this is something fun. This is something kind of interesting. It has its serious side. It was a tragedy. It's certainly no fun to have gone through it, but it's also a great story to be able to tell.
It's a great story. And I will say, there are actually, weirdly enough, heartwarming moments. I mean, you have a father and a daughter that took this cruise together. And then the mom back on shore thinks she potentially would have lost her daughter because the news, CNN especially, starts picking the story up. And it becomes here in the States this kind of national news story. But just to remind people, there was like an engine fire, I believe. That was fine, but it shut down everything on the ship. And that included the bathroom. So you could do number one, that was okay. But number two, they were have to pass out these red bags for contamination. And that's when everything turned left. And what I was so impressed by was just how things broke down so quickly, where people were moving their mattresses to the top of the ship because it was so hot in their rooms. And we were talking beforehand is like the food situation, they were getting lettuce sandwiches.
Yeah, I mean, it was bit by bit, this kind of slow dismantling of what you would call. I mean, it's not even civilization because it's a better version of civilization because you start off on this amazing, cruise
Cruise.
vacation. You've got ice cream and pizza and entertainment, and I didn't know much about cruises, and there are these. It's like paradise, this wonderful world. You're like, you get everything that you want. It's all there, and then it's whipped away from you, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And you don't have toilets, and you don't have food, and it's hot, and it's starting to smell, and people are getting angry, and yeah, it's this steady kind of dismantling of your dream vacation into something that turns into a bit of a nightmare, really.
I mean, you
um
have a bachelorette party, and they're having the time of their lives. And I just imagine like being so hungover from having the time of your life, and then all of a sudden you wake up not being able to use the bathroom. There is no proper food, and cruises are all about excess. And when that all gets taken away, it is just a tragedy. Where like it seemed like people were fighting over rations at one point.
Yeah. I mean, the bachelorettes were like, why is the bar not open? Like, this is supposed to be fun. They were just like, can we just like drink our way through this whole kind of thing? So they wanted to just kind of keep going despite the circumstances. But yeah, there was rationing. One of the characters in the film is Abby, the chef, who's one of the, I think there's hundreds of chefs on board. One of the chefs on board, and yeah, he has to kind of throw away all the perishable food because the fridges aren't working. And what have you got left? You've got kind of cereals and some bread and bits of onion and tomatoes, and they start just making thousands and thousands of sandwiches. But like, that's kind of one of the amazing things. It's like the crew on board, are put in this situation as well. And so they're trying to keep everybody happy. So they're, pushing out thousands and thousands of sandwiches. And you'd think people would be like, oh, I get it. This is
Yeah,
a really bad
exactly.
situation. Thanks so much for the sandwich, mate. You've really done me well here. And instead, everyone's like, what is this? This is, this isn't what I wanted. Why have I got a sandwich? Sorry, my dog's just walked into the thing.
No, the dog's like, please stop talking about poop crews. Please, I beg of you.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, and so this kind of, I guess, slight entitlement, or it's what we want from our vacations, isn't it? We want it to be weighted on hand and foot. That's why people go on cruises. That's the experience that you're looking for, but it turns into something very different.
and you guys, in this 55 minutes, I mean, it really is visceral, especially when you start talking about people's bathroom habits and when you get the footage of the sloshing that starts like kind of appearing in the carpeting outside the rooms. And I was like, oh God, I mean, it really did turn my stomach at one point. And you have one gentleman in a talking head who is there with his future father-in-law, and he has, he's like, I am not going to use the bathroom until this is over, and has to go find a hidden bath. Like they're even rationing off secret bathrooms in this.
Yeah, I think what happened was, all the toilets were taken out, and at some point, some electricity managed to kind of get connected to a few toilets. So there were these kind of mysterious, like, have you heard? There's a toilet somewhere, and it's like the size of a city, this place, like, and people would say like there'd be kind of an area where the toilets would work, but then they'd stop working again. So it's like people were kind of like hunting for these bathrooms, trying to find somewhere to relieve themselves, because at first you make this decision that there's no way I'm going to use a red bag, like I'm going to hold it in, because I think they think they're going to get rescued, like this is kind of a short-term thing. It's going to be a few hours, we're going to fix the boat, or someone's going to come rescue us. But then it just turns into 5 days from since the fire happened, where your decision that you smugly made at one point, saying, hey, I'm all right, I'm going to make it, I'm not going to use the red bag, suddenly starts to become harder and harder. And, at one point someone said, nature has, eventually nature's going to call and you're going to have to answer.
Well, that's what I mean, I think it asks every viewer. You have to ask yourself, when would you use the red bag? And for me, I was like, immediately. Like, I was like, I'm like, yes. I would be so in my head that I would force some situation. Sorry for all the listeners or viewers, but like, I was really thinking about myself, how long I would last. And I would say like within the first hour, I would be out.
Well, I mean, maybe that's a smart move, that you just get in there first and think, well, hang on, I'm going to go there first. But then if everybody thought like that, then, the situation would get very bad very quickly. So, what's maybe good for you isn't good for the boat. And this is a situation, it's a little kind of, experiment in human nature. Like, there's Jen, the cruise director, telling everybody, please be good. Please don't go to the toilet. Please use the red bags. This is the best situation for everyone. But people are naughty. They don't follow the rules. They don't want to learn where their muster station is or whatever. Like, they're like here to, like, no, I'm not going to do that. And so it kind of comes back on them. Like, they kind of got themselves in that situation.
There were so many little details that I found so humorous, including the cruise director. She'd have to go on every morning and be like, good morning. Hi, we made it through the night. Like, very positive. And I will say, like, when you're going through people to reach out to, since this was 2013, how do you even begin to start being like, oh, let's try to reach that person for an interview and a talking head? Like, how did you, were there a lot of people that were left on the cutting room floor? Like, why did you wind up with these guys?
Well, so Georgia and Lucy were kind of instrumental as producers in casting and getting in touch with a lot of the people. A lot of it came from footage that was already out there, obviously, people filming stuff, and this on YouTube. So we kind of identified some people. But very much so, I think there was a decision that we wanted to have people who are really invested in this cruise going well. So, Larry and Rebecca, he's a kind of divorced dad wanting to reconnect with his 12-year-old daughter. There's Devin, who's, going on it. He's like Meet the Parents, he's going on it with his in-laws. He wants to make a good impression. And then it's bridesmaids, it's the bachelorettes, and this is her one last weekend hurrah before, married life. So for them, these were really important. This was an important 4 days, so the stakes are higher. But we also really didn't want to just tell the story of the passengers. We also wanted to tell the story of the crew. and also beyond the crew, kind of what was happening on shore as well. There's kind of different layers to the story. So yeah, in the end, we got in touch with Jen and explained what we were doing and why we wanted to do it. And, she absolutely is the kind of hero of the story, I
Yeah.
think. She made this insane decision that she was forced to make. And what would you do in that situation? You've got 4,000 people with no toilets. Like, someone's got to make a decision pretty damn quickly. And she stepped up there,
Yeah.
and said, right, this is what we're going to do. And yeah, she has that kind of irrepressible positivity, good energy. She's there on the tannoy every morning, like, morning, everybody. Hope you had a good night's sleep. And they're all like, oh, piss off,
You guys, they made
like,
tent
leave me
cities.
alone.
They literally
Yeah.
were making tent cities where you saw footage of all of these tent cities on top of the boat where I was like, oh my God, this has only been 5 days. And the other interesting thing that I found fascinating was that, this happened, right? And then all of a sudden, CNN is getting word of this. Now, this would not be any kind of national news story except CNN. Jeff Zucker had just started running CNN, you guys. He's a very big wig. You've probably heard his name many places. But they were like, let's do this story. And the story tested well. And then all of a sudden, the media coverage on the poop cruise exploded, so much so that when they actually got like towed into shore, I mean, there was camera crews, there was helicopters. This became a media event that normally it probably wouldn't have been publicized this much, but that's why we're still talking about it to this day, because CNN, it was huge ratings for them, correct?
Yeah, and it was a really controversial decision he made because, this was kind of maybe a time slightly before news and entertainment was so kind of hand in hand. So, you had North Korea firing missiles. I think the Pope had just died. Obama was doing kind of a State of the Union address. So, there was serious news happening that week. And Jeff Zucker realized he needed ratings, he needed eyeballs. And he said, no, we're going to go all in, wall to wall, 24 hours a day, morning, noon, and night on this smelly cruise ship. And he got a lot of kickback from the mainstream media or whoever it is saying, like, this is ridiculous, how dare you do this. But it paid off. Like, people watched it because people want to know, what would I do in that situation? What's it like being in that situation? It's human nature to be curious about this kind of these bizarre circumstances. So he tapped into that, and I think it was a kind of shrewd and smart decision, and it paid off. But I really enjoyed how this story, which you think is a kind of silly story, poop cruise, it's got a fun title, but actually there's more to it. There's a story of how the media landscape was changing. There's stories of human beings in adversity and how we cope, and like you said before, finding something kind of redemptive in it. There's a bit of heart there too, somewhere amongst the swashing toilets and and pooey
I mean,
buckets and stuff.
you nailed it. We always talk about that intersection of pop culture and how mainstream news, like it's really so cloudy nowadays. We make everything some sort of pop culture moment, and it is interesting to like see this inflection point where if CNN hadn't have picked it up the way it did, they really were able to blow it up to this huge thing. And you almost think about, wow, how many stories did we lose because just it wasn't deemed coverable? And how interesting if somebody shines a light on something, how big we can make something. And that was truly fascinating. I want to remind people, nobody died on this poop cruise. Everybody was accounted for. And then in the end, there was, I believe, some sort of class action lawsuit. We had maritime lawyers involved. And I think they were just offered, like, from Carnival Cruise Line, like a $500 voucher. Is that correct?
Yeah, and a free cruise.
And a free cruise. And they renamed the boat. They supposedly did refurbishment on the boat, but they renamed it so nobody would be like, I'm on the boat from the poop cruise, right?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to them, they spent, I mean, it was millions and millions and millions of dollars, refitting the entire boat. It was in dock for like months and months. They really did fix it up and sent it back out there. And these are huge, as Buck says, I think, these are the largest machines in the world, like they are absolutely enormous. And so, that's a huge kind of business. They had to fix it up and get it out there. But it did also lead to kind of change within the industry. The ticketing contract, which was kind of so disputed, was amended.
Yeah, by the way, you guys, the contract they point out says, like, you sign your rights away, even if you pass away on the boat, you have initially signed your rights away for that.
Yeah, I mean, it was shocking, what it revealed, the tragedy kind of revealed both, how, there had been other cases on cruise ships that had, potentially led to similar fires, how kind of there was a need for change there, but also, how the contract basically gave you zero rights as a passenger. You had no expectation of safe passage, of sanitary living conditions, of healthy, wholesome food. It was like, there was nothing of that. So actually, this shone a light on maybe some of the worst parts of the industry. I don't even know if they're the worst parts, but shone a light on things that needed to be addressed, certainly. And they were. So something good came of it, hopefully.
I mean, I really enjoyed this so much, but I mean, the obvious question is there a poop cruise too? Will we see a continue?
Number two?
Is there
I mean, come on, like it's
poop
writes
two
itself,
number two?
doesn't
It writes itself. Has there been anything in the industry? Do we take this to dry land at some point? I mean, I kind of wanted to sadly live in this world where I was like, wow, we all were friends and we survived this tragedy together, like this television show Lost, and that's why I found it very interesting. And you're right, there were these heartwarming aspects of this story where you have this father tearing up at the end with his daughter talking about making memories. So it does have that really human element that I love. But at the same time, I was giggling very naughtily
Yeah.
throughout the whole thing.
I'm a huge believer that often overlooked stories, things that people maybe don't really think are important or kind of frivolous little things, actually are full of wonderful kind of details about human nature and, yeah, like that kind of the absurdity of the human condition and our relationships and how irrational and kind of weird all of our existence on this planet is. And yeah, there's definitely, I mean, I hope if the film does well, there'll hopefully be an appetite for more of these kind of slightly irreverent, slightly bonkers stories that maybe you think, well, I don't know, is that going to be film
Yeah.
worthy? But it absolutely is.
Yeah.
There's wonderful stories to be told there, and there's a
Um,
few of them, coming up in the series, like the
yeah.
Trainwreck series. There's more
You
episodes coming up, and
that's what I
they're
wanted to
great
say.
films.
Yeah, the Trainwreck series, you guys. I mean, if you saw Woodstock 99 years ago, it was one of my favorite documentaries, but now they have a whole series of this. Obviously, they started off with the Astro World tragedy, which was a completely different vibe, and rightfully so, but very, very well done. And then Poop Cruise is this really kind of wonderfully funny and beautiful little story on its own, but they have Mayor Rob Ford, they have Area 51, they have a story about moms, and I've been burning through these, so I highly recommend because they come out, each week a different one. So add this to your Netflix queue. And then what is up next for you, James?
I'm working for the BBC at the moment, but I kind of want to do more of these things. I'm making a thing about a Victorian serial killer. I mean, it's like it's a very, very different world. But
There's similarities with Poop Cruise, I'm sure, with Victorian
well,
serial killers.
there really isn't actually. I mean, maybe he operated on a boat. That's about as close as you could get. But no. So I mean, that's kind of the fun of this job as well, though, is you get to kind of pick up rocks and look under and find
Yeah.
different stories and different things. So. But I really, really enjoyed making this, and I think there's a need for these kind of stories, and there's an appetite for them, and I think audiences are willing to kind of have some fun. So
Yeah.
if there's more,
But we need
scope
that
for
right now, I think, more than ever too.
Yeah.
So like if you're looking to, like I said, just have something a little different and a little lightness, but also something that kind of is weirdly about the human condition, I will say check this out. I mean, full recommendation. And quickly as I let you go here, I know you're working for the BBC, but entertainment wise, what are you watching and listening to right now?
What am I watching and listening to? My kids are watching the Dallas Cheerleaders new series, and
On
that's
Netflix as well,
pretty
by
much,
the way. The
yeah,
second
yeah.
season just premiered. Yeah.
Yeah, that's on rotation heavily at the moment. So if the kids are watching that, then basically you don't really have much control of the remote control anymore. So that's what's on. And I got to say I'm really enjoying it. So but it's a
No, it's
set of kind
great.
of guilty
It's a,
pleasures, and it's fun,
yeah.
isn't it? And I don't really like coming home from work and watching anything too heavy. I want to be entertained as well. So yeah, that's what's on in my house right now.
Well, congratulations, you guys. I want to keep this in Netflix's top 10. So make sure this week or this weekend you add it. Make sure you watch it and then let me know what you thought of it. Because I've been talking about this for a couple weeks. I was like, reached out to Netflix. I was like, I really want to talk about this. So James Ross, thank you. We will be supporting you from here on out. I can't wait to hear about the bathroom habits of Victorian serial killers. And congratulations on everything. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.